Okay, are you ready to begin?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hamza Reed, and I'm the Director of Operations here at the Multicultural Center. And I'd like to welcome you all back to our Family First Center's weekly Wednesday webinar. Alhamdulillah, now presented in cooperation with ISGH, Anissa Hope Center, and Olive Branch Muslim Family Services. This webinar is presented every Wednesday at 11 a.m., so please be sure to tune in. The format usually consists of a short presentation followed by a question and answer session at the end, where we will field questions from the audience down in the chat box below. Today's exciting topic is going to be about living in between worlds, and will be presented by Sister Rabia Ilahi. A little info about Sister Rabia. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist who has her own practice called Dharma Wellness. Is that right, Sister?
Yes.
Yes. She received her master's degree here at the University of Houston, Clear Lake. She is a relationship psychotherapist, speaker, and teacher who delivers care in a more holistic way, which includes psychoeducation, energy, psychology, collaborative therapy, and spirituality. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Sister Rabia.
Hi, thank you, Hamza. And I want to thank all of you for inviting me to do this. I'm excited to share a little bit about something that I'm very, very passionate about, and that, and I think probably many of you can relate to. And it's, well, we're multicultural, right? So we're living in one place, and we may be from someone else, or our home life is from someone else, or dominant culture is different. And a lot of my clients that come to see me struggle with this too. Who am I? Am I American? Am I, as in my case, Pakistani? Am I Indian? Am I Hispanic? Like, what am I? And so I just think it's really important for those of us living in maybe a place we weren't born into, or our family wasn't born into, or our race or religion is also different from dominant, that it's important for us to know how we navigate through this living between worlds. So I thought I would start off with sharing a little bit with you guys on my journey through the two worlds. So this is my Pakistani side. I was, born in Pakistan and spent the first 6.5 years there. You can see I'm with my siblings, cousins, all of that, having fun. The next one, I'm at a wedding here in the US, but a Pakistani wedding. And my cousins there, you'll see, they're also straddling different worlds. And we love the weddings because we get to dress up and be our Pakistani side. My American side, of course, coming into elementary school, I'm the one circled in yellow. Everyone was different than we were. I played tennis on the team. And then later, just being with my college friends. And I think it is very challenging to come from a culture that maybe isn't as Western as the US and try to blend in and still hold on to values that are important. And many of us can go through a time where we're just not sure who we want to be. And we may feel like we have to make a choice. So that's in my days of questioning, who am I? Which way do I want to be? one of the things that many people can relate to, and I'm sure you can relate to, is what it was like when 9/11 happened in 2001. At the time, I was working in an American corporation, and this happened in the morning, I think a little bit after 8, and all of my colleagues, all of whom were American, were watching it on TV in the conference room. And I walked by and everyone stopped and looked at me because I was the lone Muslim in the company. And it was a very difficult time. It was scary. My siblings and I joked that it's good people think we're Hispanic because maybe we can like slide through and not be targeted in any way. Um, and for a lot of us, it was just a very scary time filled with a lot of fear. And I'm going to come back to fear. Um, so after September 11th, there was a time that it took for me personally to sort of normalize and go back to being this Pakistani Muslim, American Pakistani living in the US after Muslims were being judged as terrorists, probably as a group, as a whole. And then this happened November 8th, 2016, when Donald Trump was elected. I went through a lot of fear. Many of my clients who are Hispanic, immigrants, African Americans, all of them went through this state of, oh my God, maybe I'm not welcome here. I remember waking up and crying the next morning thinking, where's my home? I can't go back to Pakistan. I haven't lived there for most of my life. And here, the head of the country is completely racist. He's xenophobic. He's all kinds of things. And in January of 2017, as many of you recognize, he had a Muslim ban. And there were many types of things that he said that I think put a lot of us in a state of fear. And this fear wasn't a one time, it became constant. And I just put up there some of the rhetoric that he used to turn us against each other and to make us afraid. And the reason I keep going to fear is that fear is a very natural response. It's a good emotion in that it keeps us safe. The goal of fear is to keep us alive and protected. However, after a point, fear starts to work against us. And I want to show you the cycle of fear. So we first feel fear, which you'll see here, and it becomes this circle. It leads to disconnection, meaning from other people, separation. The disconnection can also be with self. So with the part of us that is loving and caring and friends with Americans and maybe friends with Republicans, I don't know. But we start disconnecting from a part of ourselves. And then we feel this separation between us and them, which is exactly what the cycle is about. Anger comes in there, pushes us more. We're better, you're not. You're against me, so I'm against you. And this leads to isolation and loneliness. And isolation and loneliness also can lead to depression and anxiety and affect a lot of our relationships. Let me go to what fear does. You probably know this, but when we first feel afraid, some of our chemicals go up, our cortisol, adrenaline, our heart rate, we feel our heart pounding, we're breathing faster, shallower. And because a different part of our brain is activated, the amygdala, which is our fight or flight, we also can't think. So our rational thinking, our ability to remember or to have a broader view of things decreases because that part of our brain is offline. And the amygdala, the fight or flight part of our brain, also brings about anger. Anger at anyone who's causing the fear. So I often get asked, what is the opposite of fear? And what is the opposite of love? So fear, maybe the opposite is fearless. And love, most people think it's hate. But the opposite of fear, opposite of love is fear. And if we look on the left column of the slides, fear, living in a culture that is not ours, that is not yours, that is maybe not what is observed in our homes or in our places of worship, leads to these feelings of being separate. We get into a dualistic thinking. So it's black or white, either or, good or bad, you're good, I'm bad, I'm good, you're bad, that type of thinking, which keeps us, again, separate. Fear also puts us in a state of scarcity, which is there's not enough. It becomes a zero sum. If I win, you lose, or if you win, I lose. There's not enough for me. I don't have power if you have power. So I need to be the one to power over you. But that's fear-based. And it, again, takes us away from our real nature, which is love. This is what we see in toddlers. They're inclusive. They'll play with anybody. They're not judging based on color, nationality, religion, any of that. Toddlers generally tend and befriend. I know I'm using the term toddler. It's just toddlers haven't yet been affected with beliefs that are not innate to them. They're not affected by what the news tells us or what even in our own communities, we can be quite exclusive. And that's something we learn from our elders, not something we are born with. The other part of feeling love is the belief that there's enough. There's enough for everyone. There are enough good things for everyone, and we don't have to deny ourselves or others from all good things. And of course, we know love also increases our compassion. The other thing I wanted to mention here is what a role spirituality plays. And not all of my clients believe in God, but they all believe in love. And if love is a spiritual concept, great. I use God. That part of being a creation of God is to also see others as creations of God. And that is a loving, compassionate, binding thing, as opposed to something that divides us and fills us with fear. So, next question. How do I start blending, or how do I live maybe more from a place of love than fear and decide on cultures? And one of the things I think it's really important for each one of us to go internally and see how do we behave? What are the different sides of us? For me, there's an American side, there's a Pakistani side, there's a Muslim side, there's maybe a Buddhist side. Um, and so there are all these different qualities that I have that I encourage other people to look at with the lens of, um, is this something I want to be in my life or not? And it can be a mixture of cultures. Um, I think one of the beauties of Eastern culture is how we respect our elders. There are such manners that go with being kind and deferential to our elders. So that's a core belief that I would hold regardless of where I live. The other thing I try to tell my clients is that we don't have to choose. We don't have to be all one thing. We're bigger than that. We're bigger than one definition. And if we can be open with ourselves that way, it is easier to accept others and be open with others who may be different. In the end, we're much more alike than we are different. And maybe love allows us to focus on what we have in common. So my life now is this. It's different races, different religions. Um, in my family, we have, it looks like an ad for Benetton. I don't know if any of y'all remember Benetton ads, but it was just like a rainbow of the world. And I am grateful to my parents for allowing that for us, and for us also to take advantage of all the things that I think being in the US does give us an opportunity to take advantage of. So here we are. And I am open now to any questions. Oops, sorry, excuse me.
That's okay. Thank you, Sister Rabia, for that informative presentation. And now we will start our question and answer session of the seminar. So if you guys have any questions to ask Sister Rabia, please text them in the chat box below. I will begin. How can living in between two cultures affect your identity and your worldview?
It affects our, how it affects our identity is what we are using to tell us who we are. Now, we can, early on when I came to the US, I identified strongly as Pakistani. That was my identity. That's what my family said. That's the country I came from. It was my blood, you know? And then over time, I was able to, as I got to know my surroundings, able to broaden my identity. But I think it's a long process, and it's also trial and error. We're all sort of like muddling along, trying to do our best. So we have to know, we have to value how we feel in our own skin when we're deciding on our identities. I don't know if that answers the question, Hamza, but
No, it does. It does. It does. You're saying that, again, hearkening back to what you said, we don't have to choose. You
no.
know, both worlds can be part of our identity.
Yes.
So I understand that. What kinds of conflict can arise in children and young adults when dealing with this cultural disharmony?
Uh, so language is one of the things that can happen, and not having command over the dominant language because they speak a different language at home. Also, the cultural differences between parents and um, children, teenagers, young adults, where there's a lot of confusion on who am I if we don't have support from our families. And it is often difficult for the older generation to understand what it's like to be an other in the US because maybe they come from where they were just like everyone else or homogenous. And so when you come here, the kids, they are treated like others. And there's a certain sensitivity, I think, that the older generation needs to have, the parents need to have for the younger ones to help them figure out where they belong.
So bleeding into that question, my last question was, what treatments or steps would you recommend one to take to help them overcome maybe the negative aspects of culture clash?
I always encourage dialogue, and I think it's important. Also, like the MCC, you know, different people are interacting that are multicultural. And so those kinds of interactions are actually quite healing for us. Obviously, education, getting to learn about dominant culture, and getting to learn about our own and going through that internal process of what feels right to me, what creates anxiety, what doesn't create anxiety. And so a lot of my a lot of what I support, I think, is a self-knowing and a stillness with self that lets us know comfort or lack of comfort, if that helps, Hamza.
Yes, yes. No, 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 it does. It does. Um, and
Education and dialogue are huge.
yes, I mean, dialogue is very, very huge, especially with the, just take an example with the Multicultural Center. Our volunteers come from a wide range of different ethnic backgrounds, different religions, and to be able to work and eat together, there's an understanding there.
Yeah.
And that is what we are sorely lacking
Yes.
in society,
Yes.
especially at this time. So,
And
uh,
look
go ahead.
around the US. I mean, the US is actually very, very diverse. And it's almost unique in that way. And so to come together and sit at a table and break bread, with people who are different is such a beautiful, um, holy experience, actually.
I think so also. So, thank you, Sister Rabia, for your presentation. And thank you all for tuning in to our Family First Center's weekly Wednesday webinar. Be sure to meet us here each week on Wednesday, where we'll be discussing a different topic at 11 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you.